プラス AI ニュースラボ。
So, you've probably seen the headlines, right? Japan finally passes a spy law. Well, that's not really the full picture. Not even close. What's actually going on is way more subtle and honestly a lot more powerful. We're going to unpack the real strategy, the one being built piece by piece right under our noses.
Okay, so let's start with the big question. Is Japan a spy haven? For years, that's been the criticism, right? The weak link in G7 intelligence. And yeah, that label is a huge reason for this big push for change. But the solution they're cooking up, it's probably not what you're imagining.
See, the solution, it's different from what you think. This isn't about one single massive law. You can just throw that idea out the window. The reality is much more complex, and it's all being pieced together, almost quietly. So let's break down exactly how they're doing it.
All right, Section 1. Not one single law? So how in the world is this all happening without a big, flashy spy law? Well, it's through something experts are calling a de facto divided introduction. Fancy term, right? But all it really means is that instead of one giant, super controversial bill, the government is building its counterintelligence machine one part at a time.
And this whole strategy, it's basically built on three main pillars. Think of it like a three-step plan. Step 1 and 2 are already moving forward. We're talking about new security clearances to protect sensitive tech secrets, especially in the business world. And Step 2 is all about active cyber defense, basically monitoring our most important networks. But it's that third pillar, countering those sneaky influence operations, that's where things get really tricky and really controversial.
And because it's so controversial, you can bet the political parties are not on the same page, not at all. They have some wildly different ideas about what to do next, and when you look at their plans, you can really see the fault lines in this whole debate.
Okay, so let's compare the party plans. Just look at this table. The divisions are stark. You've got the ruling LDP playing it smart, you know? They're avoiding that scary spy law name, but they're still expanding surveillance powers. Then there's Ishin. They're all about transparency. They want a Foreign Agent Registration Act, kind of like what the US has, to make it clear who's working for who. Sanseito, whoa, they're going all in, pushing for a standalone law with the most severe penalties you can imagine. We're talking death or life in prison for major leaks. And of course, the opposition parties are raising red flags everywhere, warning that this is a one-way ticket to a surveillance society, crushing the right to privacy.
And that brings us right to the heart of the matter, the benefits versus the dangerous side effects. Because look, everyone agrees that national security is important. No one's debating that. But the solutions on the table, man, they're a real double-edged sword. And the side effects could be seriously dangerous.
Let's look at the two sides of this coin. On the necessary side, yeah, these laws could help counter what are called gray zone operations. You know, those subtle influence campaigns that aren't quite acts of war, like when foreign money is used to shape public opinion, something that's surprisingly legal in Japan right now. It would also let Japan get in on major international tech projects and respond super fast to cyber attacks on our infrastructure. But then you flip the coin, and the problems are huge. The line between a state secret and the public's right to know gets incredibly blurry. And you could create a climate of fear that just shuts down international business and academic research.
So let's talk about these risks. The first big one is something called scope creep. It's a classic problem. You create a law to catch foreign spies, right? Sounds good. But then, slowly, the definition of spy starts to stretch, and a little more. And suddenly, that same law is being used against journalists digging into a government scandal, or maybe activists protesting a policy they don't like. It is the definition of a slippery slope.
And then there's risk number 2, the chilling effect. This one is just as dangerous. It's when the fear of being watched makes people change their behavior. You know, a university might think twice about hiring that brilliant researcher from another country. A tech company might back away from a big international project because they're worried their emails are being read. It's this fear that causes a kind of self-censorship, and that can be poison for innovation and free speech.
Okay, I know this sounds super complicated, but it doesn't have to be. We can actually boil it down to a simple checklist. 3 key questions you can ask about any new security law to spot the danger signs for yourself. Ready? Let's go through it.
All right, checkpoint number 1. And this is probably the most important one. Who exactly is being targeted?
Ask yourself, does the definition of a spy have room to include ordinary citizens? Because that definition can be dangerously flexible.
So here's your danger signal. If you see a law that targets anyone, instead of being very specific, like, say, public officials handling secrets, that's a huge red flag. Another one is super vague language, stuff like activities that harm diplomatic interests. What does that even mean?
A phrase that broad could easily be used to shut down a legitimate protest or a critical newspaper article. That's where the danger lies.
Okay, on to checkpoint number 2. This one is all about the rules of the game.
What are the rules for warrants and notification? I mean, how does the government actually get permission to start listening in on someone? The fine print here is everything.
And the danger signal to look for is any loophole that lets them bypass a judge. If the law has a clause that allows surveillance without a court warrant for an emergency, you have to ask what counts as an emergency. Even more worrying is if there's no requirement to ever tell a person they were investigated. Think about it. If you never know you are being watched, how can you ever challenge it in court? You can't. It's secret surveillance that can never be held accountable.
All right, checkpoint number 3. This is a really timely one, especially with all the talk about a Foreign Agent Registration Act.
The question is simple. How broad is the definition of a foreign agent?
And again, this is where you look for those danger signals. Does the definition include groups like NGOs, international students, or even cultural exchange programs? If the rule is that just receiving foreign funding automatically makes you an agent, that's a huge problem. That kind of rule could be weaponized to slap a political label on any group the government doesn't like. You could see environmental charities or human rights groups being branded as foreign puppets just to shut them down.
So when you put all these checkpoints together, they all point to one of the oldest, most fundamental questions in any democracy. Who watches the watchers?
And let's be real, from an international perspective, Japan's moves are seen as long overdue. The world's view is shifting from the weak link in the G7 to slow but necessary progress. And of course, there's the ambition to maybe one day join the big leagues, like the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance. That international pressure is a massive driver here. But, and this is a big but, that same pressure to get with the program can create a trap where a country ends up sacrificing the freedoms of its own citizens just to meet some international standard.
Which brings us to what might be the single most important point of this whole thing. The crucial question isn't just, do we need a law to crack down on spies? The real question, the one that truly matters, is, are we also building a system to monitor the government that gets to use these new powers?
Because that's the ultimate balancing act, right? Security and freedom. It's a line that every democracy has to constantly draw and redraw. And the question for Japan right now, and really for all of us, is figuring out exactly where that line should be.